is a popular craft, easy to learn and enjoyable to do. Weaving plays an important part in our daily lives. Here's a screen used as a background for flowers. It was woven from bamboo shades and ravel strings. The table mat was woven from cellophane and cotton string. This knitting bag was woven from cotton yarn. The table mat was made from raffia and bamboo. There are 4 steps to remember in the making of a loom and weave. First, making the frame of the loom. Second, adding nails for the warp strings. Third, stringing the loom. Fourth, weaving. This simple loom was made from 4 wooden boards. This is Peter, who will show you how he made his loom. He chose soft pine wood because it's easy to saw and nail. Here are the materials Peter needs. 8 box nails, a 1/4 pound of finishing nails, a coping saw, a hammer, and a sanding block. We've assembled all our materials, and we now need a jig. This jig is made of 1/4 inch plywood with 1 by 1½ inch wooden strips on 3 sides. We don't need a strip on this side. If we turn the jig round, we can see the yardstick nailed on this side. We'll measure the length of wood here. Notice these side frames of the loom. They'll be measured off first. Place the wood on the measuring side and mark the desired length like this. Turn the board round in order to mark 2 sides of the board. You can now see the pencil marks and will be able to saw more evenly. Place the wood on a low stool and hold it securely by placing your knee and hand on it. Now begin to saw on the pencil marked line. Use the coping saw with a downward action like this. Never attempt to force the saw or the blade will break. Peter finishes sawing his second side frame and places it in the jig. He'll make the end frames next. He measures the desired length on the measuring side of the jig and marks it with a pencil. Notice how he turns the wood round to put pencil marks on the bottom and side of the board. Peter sandpapers each frame smoothly so that splinters won't get into his hands. He places the last frame in the jig. The jig holds the wood while Peter hammers the first nail near the edge to hold the corners together, using a box nail. Notice where he places the second nail. It's away from the first nail in order to avoid splitting the wood. Peter squares all corners of the loom in this corner of the jig. He then nails the corners while holding them in place. And now the frame of the loom is finished. Place a row of nails on the top and bottom frames to hold the warp string, using finishing nails. This measuring board helps to measure distances between nails and to keep them in a straight row. Use the holes at the dark marks for 1 inch spacing. Use dark and light for 1/2 inch spacing. Use all the holes for 1/4 inch spacing. Place the measuring board on top of the end frame of the loom. Place your hands on it like this to line it up evenly with the loom. Measure off 1/2 inch from the end of the frame by placing the first nail in the hole. This avoids splitting the wood. Drive the nail in the hole. Now drive the second nail a half-inch from the other end, like this. These two nails hold the measuring board in place, while you drive in all the other nails. Peter places his nails 1 inch apart, because he's going to weave with 1 inch wide material. The measuring board is easily removed, and notice how straight it kept the nails. Turn the loom around. Notice how the measuring board is placed on this side of the end frame. Place your nails exactly as you placed the other nails. We're now ready to string the loom. This is called warp string. It's very strong and is easy to obtain. Place the warp spool in a box while measuring off the amount needed. Count the nails on one side of the loom. Take half of that number and wrap the warp string lengthwise around the loom. Go around once more to give yourself plenty of warp to start and finish your stringing. Wrap the warp string around a piece of cardboard as you wind it off. Double this string for the length of the loom. Place it on the second nail by going around the first nail, and then come back to the other side. Place one string on each side of the end nail. Tie 2 knots. Slip the card of string through the double string and slide it over to the other end frame. Notice this carefully. Go around the first nail, the second nail, and then around the third nail on the other end frame. Place the string around the nails each time you carry the string across the loom. After placing the string around the last nail, tape it like this to keep the tension. Slip the end of the string under the warp between the second and third nails. Make a loop and put the end of the string through it. Draw up the loop to tighten it. Tie a second knot in the same way. Peter has finished stringing his loom and is now ready to begin weaving. This jig can be used to make many different sized looms. Decide what you want to make and then plan the size and shape of your loom. You could weave a small rug on this loom, or a purse, table runner or pillow top on this smaller loom. And remember, looms may be used over and over again. Beginners will enjoy weaving on large looms with warp nails 1 inch apart. This is the weft. It should be 1 inch wide. Weave it over and under the warp string. More experienced weavers may prefer a smaller loom with warp nails placed ½ an inch apart. A narrower weft, like rug yarn, could be used. An interesting challenge is presented by still smaller looms with warp nails 1/4 of an inch apart. The closer the warp nails are put together, the narrower should be the weft. Two curtain rods placed at the sides of the loom like this will keep the sides from pulling in. Weave around the rod each time you go across. Another way to keep the sides from pulling in is to loosen the warp strings. Feel the tension before beginning to weave. Try weaving with many materials. Raffia, cloth, rug yarn, ribbons, cellophane, rags, jute, wool, cotton and rayon, nylon net, metallic thread, reed, bamboo, wood. Strips of dyed sheets may be used for the weft. It's easier to weave with a 1 inch wide weft like this when you're just beginning to weave. Here's David with his loom. Notice that the nails are 1 inch apart. Weaving relaxes David and gives him many hours of satisfaction and enjoyment. It gives him a chance to use his hands in a creative and constructive way. When weaving with short strips, you don't need curtain rods. David weaves interesting colours together. Notice how quickly he can weave over and under each warp string. Now he pushes the weft closer together so that the weaving will be strong. He reverses the order of over and under each time he weaves across. He has now finished, so he'll take his weaving off the loom. Because these finishing nails have no heads, the warp strings can easily be lifted off. Watch how quickly David slips the warp strings off the nails. David's mat is a gift for his mother. It can be used for plants. Here, raffia and cotton string are being woven. When finished, notice how the rods are removed. Renew the weft by overlapping and weaving the end of the old and new weft together, like this. Do the same when changing to another material. This loom is longer and will need stronger support on the sides, such as curtain rods. A piece of cardboard woven in at the ends adds support and measures the length of the fringe. These nails are placed 1/4 of an inch apart so that a finer weft may be woven. Notice the simple shuttle. A fine weft is easier to work if wound on a shuttle like this. Carry the shuttle around the rod each time you weave across the loom. Then weave it over and under the warp string like this. Beat the weft string down. Notice that the warp string doesn't show in the finished weaving. Here, nylon net is used for both warp and weft. The warp shows and becomes part of the design. Stitch around the edges to hold them in place. With designs like this, notice how to loop yarn together each time you weave across. If you don't loop your yarn, spaces like this will appear. When the weaving is finished, take it off the loom like this. Push the weft towards the ends to cover the warp strings. When weaving with bamboo strips, place them between nails like this. They act as the warp here. Yarn is woven over and under. When finished, lift the strips off the loom. And here's the finished mat. Bamboo strips may be cut in different widths. This one has been painted. Threads ravelled from material made interesting weft strings to weave with the bamboo. Here's a rug made from dyed sheets and sewn together. Experiment with your weaving. Many things can be woven from discarded materials. Try weaving with materials that have never been used before to see what new styles and designs you can create.